guys, it's Carla. I'm here again in my kitchen for another episode of That Sounds So Good, which is my book, and it is also me making recipes from my book. And today I am going to make a recipe that is also just a true statement. Everybody loves a chicken cutlet. That's the name of the recipe, and that is something that is just truth. Every time it's cutlet night, everybody is so psyched. The thing about chicken cutlets is that when they're good for all the same reasons. They're crispy, they're juicy, they're super well seasoned. And when they suck in all the same ways. They're dry, they're crumbly, they're bland, and the crispy breading has somehow turned into like wet sand. So I'm going to show you a few things that I do to make sure my cutlets are super crispy, super juicy, super delicious. And then, as if that wasn't enough, I'm going to pair it with one of my favorite sauces from the book, creamy spicy sauce, also two great things that go great together. And then I'm going to show you how to do that, but work it up into a fried chicken sandwich. Because if everybody loves a chicken cutlet, it then follows that everybody loves a fried chicken cutlet sandwich. So it is cutlet night in America. Let's eat. Juicy and flavorful are going to be impacted right up at the top by the choice of the chicken part that you do. First things first, I'm using thighs. I'm a thighman. I suggest that you become a thighman too. A lot of times the chicken cutlet is boneless, skinless chicken breast. I am sorry, but they are less juicy and they are less flavorful. So plastic wrap here. First thing I want to do is kind of just like suss out my chicken thigh. Yes, they're boneless, skinless. There's some bigger pieces of fat over there. I don't really care about that. I'm just going to show one right now, but you can definitely put like 2 or 3 under in between here. The only thing that's different about a chicken thigh from like skinless, boneless, you do need to kind of even out the chicken thigh. So it's a little bit thicker on the sides and thinner in the middle. I'm just using the meat mallet to kind of equalize the thick and thin so that it cooks through evenly at the same rate. That wasn't hard. And if you're feeling at all squeamish, of course we have the latex glove. These are the wrong size. It doesn't matter. But this way, you know, you can kind of like handle it a little bit. Sometimes there will just be a thing that needs to just come off. Having a sheet above and below means that when you smack the chicken, it spreads out instead of just like sticking to your surface. So the goal is not to make like the thinnest cutlet you could ever make, because we want there to be something to bite into. I want there to be juiciness in the middle. So really the goal is just to even out the thinness and the thickness to where it's more or less the same everywhere. But it does not have to be paper thin. This isn't chicken parm. Okay. Even though I have Everybody Loves a Chicken Cutlet in the Monday through Thursday section of the book, so technically I do think of this as like a weeknight dinner, it is a special night. And the reason why it is a special night is because of this. Because of the breading. You gotta commit. So I think the easiest way to do it is just full assembly line. I've got raw chicken on one side, I have all the steps for the breading, and then I have a landing pad over there. It goes really quickly. It's just like part of it. It's just something you have to do. In a normal 3-step dredge, it's very typical to have regular all-purpose flour, then egg wash, and then breadcrumbs. I'm using panko because I just love their texture. They're shaggy and craggy and get like super crispy. I've got whole eggs, which I'm about to whisk. And then in the process of working on this recipe, I was like, okay, we always use all-purpose flour, but what are the other things that you could use in that layer? I did some side-by-side comparisons between all-purpose flour, cornstarch, potato flour, mung bean flour, and the potato starch, it kept everything glued down the best, and it kept the breading crispier longer. So that's how we ended up with half a cup of potato starch in this recipe. Potato starch also used in a lot of gluten-free cooking. This is about half a cup. It's like an imprecise measure because it's just enough to bread the cutlets. Also, what is it called? Oobleck? Oobleck, which you can make with like 2 parts potato starch to 1 part water. It's not a solid and it's not a liquid. It's oobleck. Anyway, so once you have it in the house, you know what I mean? You'll find other uses for it. All right. So I'm going to season every layer. Again, a good cutlet is juicy, crispy, and flavorful. So under the category of flavorful, season all of the elements in your dredge. I'm not going to put pepper in the panko because I don't want black flecks. Now for the chicken thighs, these also need to be seasoned. When I was working on the recipe, I tried just salt and pepper. It's good. Salt, pepper, and garlic powder was better. So that's what we're using. Recipe calls for a teaspoon of garlic powder. The story of my life is like 95% of it ends up where it's supposed to, and the other 5% is on the floor. And that is why I have a dustbuster. So the recipe calls for 4 boneless, skinless chicken thighs. I have 5 because that was what was in the package. Like sometimes you open up those shrink wrap packages and they've got 4, and sometimes you open it up and they have 5. So I'm making all of them. All right, so now we're seasoned, we're sorted, and I'm going to start breading. Here's what's important, especially the first layer with the potato starch, even thin coating. So if you have like thick parts of the potato starch, that's gonna end up being like a thick gummy part in the breading. And if you have bald spots in the potato starch, the egg won't stick, and then you'll get a little part that has no breading at all. So just take a little care. Okay, second layer, eggs. The important part here is really to let the excess drip off completely. If it's like thick and eggy and too much egg, then you'll just get like wet clumps, and you don't want wet clumps. You want dry and crispy. And then this layer. So make sure the panko is everywhere. Everywhere that you have egg and potato starch, you should have panko. Ideally, you will have more panko than you need for the last cutlet because it's just such a drag to have exactly the amount of panko that you need because it's so hard to get it everywhere when there's only a little left in the plate. Okay, we are seasoned, we are breaded, so we are flavorful and we are on our way to crispy. And the next thing to do is just get these suckers in the oil. So finished dust busting the floor and I'm back. It's fry time. What I've got is a nice wide high-sided skillet. It's preheating a little bit. I want it to be nice and hot. We have our breaded cutlets, and then I've also got a rimmed baking sheet lined with paper towel that's actually sitting on top of a cooling rack. So if you have a cooling rack, you can set up inside of your rimmed baking sheet. If not, paper towel right on the surface is also terrific. And I'm using sunflower oil. You want just a neutral vegetable oil for frying. How much oil you need will depend on the dimensions of the pan, but I'm gonna pour in enough to reach about 1/4 inch. It could be around 1/2 cup. All right, I'm shimmering. It feels hot. I hear the radiating of the heat, and I'm just gonna drop a little panko in. Want to see it bubble and rise up to the surface, like pretty much immediately. All right, let's get some cutlets in the oil. Just be careful when you add them to the oil. You never want to drop a cutlet into oil. Just want to lay it in there. I'm looking for a lot of bubbling active, which is happening. I'm looking for browning around the edges. before I turn these. Cutlets, unlike a steak or a pork chop, they don't really hold up to being turned back and forth. You really just want to turn them when they're golden on one side and finish them on the second side. Because they're so thin, in the time it takes for the breadcrumbs to get really nice and toasty, I feel very confident that the meat will be cooked through as well. Should take about 2 to 3 minutes per side. I also think it's a good idea to rotate the pan every now and then, just to make sure that if it's a little hotter over there, that you're equalizing that by turning it. Almost. Underside looks amazing. Actually, I'm going to use spatula. I don't want to break off my beautiful coating. I'm going to salt it while it's there. I mean, hot and crispy have been achieved, that is for sure. And now that they are hot and crispy, it's time to build sandwiches and find out if they are also juicy and flavorful. Okay, so my spicy creamy sauce for the cutlets was heavily influenced by the creamy spicy sauce in the Nobu cookbook, which I have had like since it came out, so plus or minus 7,000 years ago. And when I took it out today to talk about it, I saw this inscription. His creamy spicy sauce is essentially like handmade mayonnaise that you spike with chili garlic sauce. In my version, I switched it up a little bit. I'm gonna start with half a cup of plain Greek yogurt. If you have regular plain yogurt, maybe just set it in a fine mesh strainer, like when you're gonna start on your prep, and let some of the water drain. That'll thicken it up. And so to that, I'm going to add a teaspoon of soy, a teaspoon of rice vinegar, unseasoned rice vinegar preferably, a tablespoon of sambal. I got this sambal at a Malaysian food store in Queens. I bought it because it's not sambal olek, which is the one that I'm used to. This one is sambal geprek, specifically made for serving with fried chicken. So I thought, why wouldn't I just use this one for fried chicken cutlet night? This is pretty hot, but I like the sauce spicy. Look how gorgeous. Tablespoon of that. And this is QP mayo. You've probably seen it, had it. It is a very delicious seasoned mayo. It definitely has MSG in it and tastes really, really good. I was always disappointed the first time I ever bought QP to realize that the guy isn't printed on the bottle. So I need 2 tablespoons. Creamy and spicy. It's essentially what you're working with here. This creamy spicy is just like a great sauce for having around. Anything fried is gonna taste good dipped in this, or if you are someone who mixes mayo and sriracha together, anytime that you would do that, you can do this. I'm gonna add some salt. Woo, baby. It's gonna be good because there's gonna be like a lot of fatty flavors, and then there's gonna be crunchy cabbage. Sometimes spiciness can be tempered with sweetness, so I'm adding a pinch or 2 of sugar. So just last touch, just a little drizzle of sesame oil. And this just adds like a toastiness, a little bit more richness. Okay, so that's super fast to come together, and it's going to be an awesome layer in these chicken sandwiches. So there's 2 kinds of crunchy in the finished sandwich. There's like hot and crunchy, and then there's cold and crispy. And the cold and crispy is gonna come from this shredded cabbage. I'm not doing much to it. Whatever cabbage, just something super crunchy and cold and acidic is what you're looking for in this sandwich. Gorgeous. Look at that ombre. I mean, come on. Yum. Okay, I think that's plenty. It's cold, it's fluffy, it's crunchy, it's frilly. So for this, I'm going to season it with white distilled vinegar. You could use any kind of vinegar that you have. I love white distilled because it's just like in your face acidity, but the same rice vinegar from the creamy spicy sauce would be terrific. White wine vinegar, sherry vinegar. Just don't use balsamic vinegar. I think that would just be weird. Mmm. Salty, sour, crunchy, and very sweet, which is delicious. Cabbage is going to be great on the sandwich. So now let's build some sandwiches. These are brioche buns. You can use any kind of like sandwich bun that you like. I just think something that has a soft texture is a nice companion for the crispy and the juicy. Creamy spicy sauce, looking great. Okay. Cutlet. Come on. Jesus, Mary Joseph. Okay. I just drooled a little bit. Bon me. Looks pretty good. It's not like a crazy abundance of cabbage. I guess there could be more. We'll find out. Ta-da! I'm gonna try it. You're gonna get my opinion. You have no right being not delicious. I'm almost like mad at it. It's like rude. It's like, you. I can't deal with you. It's too good. So this is something that really bothers me when a cutlet is bad. You have that separation between the breading and the chicken thigh itself or the chicken breast where it's like an air pocket has opened up and then there's just a layer of gummy, wet weirdness. And I'm just saying with the potato starch, it never happens. So it's just snug as a bug in a rug. Fused. Leo, yes. Come. Chicken cutlet as you've had before. Mm-hmm. And then there's crunchy cabbagey situation and spicy creamy sauce. Please have a bite. I'll have another bite since you're here. So if you had an imaginary checklist, juicy, crunchy, flavorful. Well, that's amazing.
Well, great. Thanks for having me.
You can take that to go.
Cool, bye.
Thanks so much. That's the guy. That's the only opinion that matters. And yours, of course. So let me know. Were the people happy? Were you happy? Was it worth it? Sound off. All the reviews are welcome, but the 5-star reviews are really highly appreciated. Cutlet Night in America. I hope it's coming up soon.